Now, in case you missed it, I got started with TanStack Start last week. The video was uploaded to my second YouTube channel, Maximilian Schwarzmüller Extended. You can watch it there if you wanna get started with me with TanStack Start. Though I will say, I feel like I forgot a lot of what I learned last week because I have not used TanStack Start the entire week, had lots of other stuff to do. So I have to get back into. And then the plan, however, is to build a bit more interesting stuff this week than last week. Because last week it was just like playing around with the basics, setting up a project, learning how routing works, and we didn't build anything useful there. Today I want to change this. And I will use the same project from last week again, but I will basically erase all the routes from there and start from scratch and just keep the shell so that we don't have to go through the setup process again. My plan for today is to build a little demo app, which I might deploy actually, not today, but maybe next week, where I want to be able to post ideas on future topics I could cover in live streams, and then people should be able to log in with their Google or Twitch accounts and vote for these ideas to basically tell me what I wanna or what I should cover in future streams. So yeah, there is that. That's the idea. That's what I want to build. And for building that, we'll use TanStack Start, of course. I will also use better-auth for authentication because better-auth actually has built-in support for authentication with Google and Twitch. So that's amazing. That's exactly what I need. And I'm not sure if I'll get everything done today, but if not, I'll simply continue next week. We'll see how far we get. Holger, Florida, nice place to be. Probably nicer from the weather perspective than here in Germany, though it is quite nice today, I have to say. And super happy to hear that you got the book yesterday. I hope you like it. TanStack in the future, we'll see. It's probably too niche for a book, but I'll cover it here and also... yeah, we'll see. Maybe there are more books or more written content in the future. And Firestorm, nice to meet you. Hamza, nice to see you. Welcome, everybody. Let's dive in. So as I said, I want to erase what I have here, erase that project I built in the last week, and rebuild it, essentially. And relearn it along the way because, as I mentioned, I'll probably forget quite a bit of what I did there. I'll keep that root route, that root document, that shell, which is basically like the root layout that wraps our app. I'll keep that root page, that home page here essentially, and I'll keep all the others set up here. I think there's nothing in there that would need to be deleted. This file is auto-generated anyways, if I recall that correctly. And yeah. That all looks good. So here on the index page, I do want to get rid of that import, which I don't need anymore, and get rid of, yeah, all these server functions. Keep create file route, keep the component, but get rid of the loader dependencies, get rid of the loader, pending error. We can delete all that, get rid of this import, and clean that all up so that we really start from scratch again. And I'll just add a little hello world here to see whether that all still works. And let's restart this, this development server here with npm run dev. Yeah. Let's see. Localhost 3000. Okay, I got 2 hello worlds in there, probably because I have one in here too in the root document. Yeah, that's the case. We can delete that. Okay, so that is working. That is working. We got that up and running. And now as a first step, I want to bring in Tailwind so that I don't have to write all the CSS code from scratch. And since TanStack in the end uses Vite, I mean, here in the app config.ts file, we were using Vite in the end. since that's the case, we should be able to add Tailwind to a TanStack Start project simply by following the Tailwind docs for Tailwind. That should do the trick, I guess. So as a first step, I'll install Tailwind here, the Tailwind CSS package. And I'm using the latest version of Tailwind here, Tailwind 4. So I'll install that and wait for that to finish. Here we go. And then as a next step, import that into my not vite-config.ts file, but in this project here, my app-config file. And then add it to plugins, execute it and add that to plugins. And that should hopefully do the trick. Then I need a CSS file, which I'll import. And I don't think I have any file yet. Nope. So I'll add one and add this import. And make sure that this CSS file is loaded. Now, I want to check whether the TanStack Start docs say anything about styling. Do they have any recommendations regarding how I should include CSS or load? No, I don't think they have that. So I guess I can include it however I want in that root document. I got that head section. Do I have links here too? Where I could register links that should be loaded? CSS file links? No, I don't. So I guess here in the head section, I can add a new entry, of course. And define my link here. Though that's seemingly also not how I should do it. So I can, of course, also include it here. Right. Or since they don't have a recommendation, I can also, I guess, simply import it. Import app CSS. Does that work? I would guess so. Let's see. If I run npm run dev, that's starting again. And now it crashed. Error when evaluating. Failed to load CSS. Okay, so that's not... Oh, because my import path is wrong. I need to go up one level. It's in the root folder of this project, like this. Yeah, so that looks better. Tailwind applied. So now I got Tailwind imported, and with that I can, of course, add it to my various components and files. Is TanStack Start overrated? I don't know. I barely got started with it. Started using it last week, or started exploring it last week, and now I'll try to build a project together with you. So I guess you can judge yourself after this project. Okay, so we got that all set up, got Tailwind set up, and as mentioned, I want to build an app that allows people to sign up and then vote for suggestions regarding future live stream ideas. So I guess we can start with that auth route as a first step, and I'll simply add an auth tsx file here for that. I remember we get this nice boilerplate generated here when we add a new route file. That's nice. And in there, I want to show an auth form in the end. So we could say something like login or authentication required. And below that, then add a form. And in that form, yeah, the question is whether I want to allow authentication with username and password, or if I just want to allow Google Mail and Twitch, Google and Twitch. I think, yeah, I'll allow that too, and then we can always remove it later, I guess. Now I want to change that a little bit, add a label here, and say email. And that actually should be for the email address of the user. And the type therefore should be email, not username. And then here I want to have a paragraph and say password and yep, have that, and then have a last paragraph here, which includes that button. And then I'll take care of styling a little bit later. T3 chat review is maybe an idea for the future. I'm not sure if I want to mess with Theo. So that's the off screen here. Awesome. So next step is, of course, to add some styling, at least, because it's obviously not looking nice in any way. So here, I'll start on the body. And let's give it like a... Let's go for some dark mode look with these classes here. So that we have a dark website. And then I wanna... I guess I wanna... Yeah, I'll go to my auth screen here then. Wrap that in a main element. And give that some styling. So here I wanna maybe do something like max width, and then go for 50 rem or something like this. MX auto, MY8, and maybe make that a bit smaller. I'm also zoomed in quite a bit here, which is why it's looking at like it's all the way on the left. This is taking up the space I reserved. It's just almost the entire screen since I'm zoomed in. I then want to have my form here also with some spacing to top and bottom. Give it a rounded corners because that's always better, right? Some padding and maybe a different gray background like that. And of course for the title, I'll make that bold and a bit bigger, and yeah, should be good. I mean, I'll not spend too much time on styling here because I want to focus on TanStack Start and authentication and so on. Just want to have some basic styling so that it's not super ugly. So now for the inputs here. Let's make sure that they jump into a new line. So I'll make them block and give them some padding, rounded corners too, and also a different background, I guess. Okay, that's the same background color, obviously. Wow, I'm zoomed in quite a bit. That's huge. Also, let's reduce the padding here. So there's that. And of course, I want to make sure that they do take up the entire width that is available. And for the label, bold, a little bit of margin to the bottom. And make them a bit smaller. Actually, that's still too big. Let's go for 30 rem here. And then I could, of course, put it into a separate component here. I'll just copy and paste, since it's only these two inputs for now, so that they have the same look. And then last but not least, for the button here, let's add some padding to the top. And then on the button, maybe use indigo for the background. Some white text, some rounded corners again, and then some padding to top and bottom. Yeah, a bit more padding to left and right, maybe, to make it a bit bigger. And we can also center that, I guess. Yeah, you can improve it, definitely, but it looks better than what we had before, I guess. So let's also give it a nice hover effect, and there is that. Yep, it's that German JavaScript dev from YouTube. Hi there. And what else do we have here? Whoa, we got quite a lot of questions here. I really liked my experience using TanStack Router, but couldn't add state to components depending if a user was logged in or not. Okay, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I have absolutely no experience with TanStack Start and authentication, so we'll see how easy or hard that is or which problems I might face. I expect a lot. I expect that not all things will work smoothly. How do I update all packages using Expo, not NPM? It's been a while since I've last worked with Expo. I don't know from the top of my head right now, sorry. In which case would you recommend TanStack over Next.js? I haven't used TanStack Start at all besides that short session last week, so I would not recommend it over Next.js at the moment. I'm just exploring it. My current view on Schwarzmüller, so I've never used Schwarzmüller too much. I am more of the I use Tailwind CSS and build stuff from scratch guy. And sometimes I do use Radix UI on which Schwarzmüller is based. So I guess a lot of people that use Schwarzmüller don't know that. But Radix UI is actually the components that are used by Schwarzmüller under the hood. So what you can do is you can also use Radix UI if you want to have certain components. If you want to have like an accordion or something like that, right? You can use that, and that gives you the logic, the accessibility. It gives you components you can add, and you can then style them with raw Tailwind. And of course, that's a bit less convenient than Schwarzmüller, where you have some styling and you can then adjust it. But I'm more the type of guy that wants to like build stuff from scratch very often, and therefore I like that if I'm using a component library. But very often I'm also just hand rolling it like this. And of course there I would spend more time on making it prettier. But yeah, that's how I approach that. I can use container instead of max width. Yeah, but that's a little bit too wide here. So I'll stick to that. I went surfing this morning and got 10. That's not too bad of a start in the day, I guess. Any reason for exploring TanStack Start? Fun, good enough for me. So yeah, there is that. Now I wanna add better-auth for authentication to get that out of the way, and I will use SQLite, and I guess I will use Drizzle ORM, which I haven't used too much, but which I also want to use a bit more, learn a bit more about it, so to say. In case you don't know, Drizzle ORM is a TypeScript ORM for working with SQL, so that you don't have to write those SQL statements yourself, like all ORMs, right? That's always the idea behind all these ORMs, and Drizzle ORM is just one alternative option, an alternative to Prisma, for example. So that's what I want to use. So I will actually start with installing that before I then add better-auth. So I need the SQLite guide. Here we go. And I'm using npm, so I'll first of all install it. Stop that development server, install Drizzle. Is this live going to be saved on YouTube? Yes, it will be saved. All recordings of all my live streams will be uploaded to this channel, Maximilian Schwarzmüller Extended. That is youtube.com/@Maximilian-Extended. I upload all my VODs there, so you can watch it tomorrow or whenever you want. I will upload it tomorrow, though, not today. Okay, so that's the first step, installing this. Then I need a .env file. So let's add one. And my DB file name should be appdb here. Whoops. There's that. Okay, it should have this format, I guess. So it will be file:appdb. And then I need to initialize a database with Drizzle. So for that, I'll add a new file in my app folder, name it dbts. And that should be that. I don't use .env/config for loading my environment file, my .env file, because I'll use Node.js native support for that. Not a lot of people know that, but modern Node.js can do quite a lot of stuff, including loading env files without any extra package. If you're using a recent version of Node.js, if you have that installed, you can add the --env-file flag and tell it to load the environment variables that might be stored in some file. So that's what I'll do. Okay, so I hope that will work and will do the trick. So it's using libsql here. Yeah, okay, I guess that works for me. I think I chose the SQLite guide, but okay, yeah, it's using libsql. So be it. That's essentially a port of SQLite to Rust. So there is that. Now I won't create any tables yet because I do know that better-auth wants to create their own tables, and I think they also have instructions for how to do that when using Drizzle. Under integrations or somewhere, maybe in the getting started guide, configuring database, Postgres. I do know that they mentioned Drizzle somewhere. They have an adapter for that. Yeah. And then they generate the schemas and we just need to migrate them by running this command. So that's why I don't want to follow the Drizzle guide, which tells us that we want to define our own schema for now and do all that. Instead, I want to use better-auth. I will add that drizzle config.ts file, though. We'll probably need that. So let's add drizzle.config.ts. Auth Drizzle source db schema ts. I'm not sure. We'll have to see where better-auth generates its schema. Dialect SQLite, yeah, I guess that should all work. And with that, back to better-auth, I want to get started installing that. So, another package to install, of course. better-auth, by the way, is a package I also already explored in a past live stream. It was a bit bumpy, but I was able to install and use it. And I think it was my third live stream. And I got a VOD of that too. But we'll explore it again today. I need a better-auth secret in my env file. And I'll use super secret for now. Obviously, that's not what I would use in production. But I'll use it here for development. And my better-auth URL. Here we go. And this is the port that's being used by TanStack Start, so that should work. Create a better-auth instance. So we need to create an auth.ts file in one of these locations: project root, lib folder, utils folder. I'm not sure if the project root here is the app folder now, or if it's really like the project root. But I guess we will find out if it works or not. So here they're mentioning the source directory. In my case here, in TanStack Start's world, the app directory is the source directory. So I guess that will work. Oh, I also recall they do have a guide regarding TanStack Start. But they have nothing. It's just this part which I need to change then. Okay, so we'll see if that works. So that's that. Now I'll go to that auth.ts file and paste in this code, importing better-auth and having an empty object here, which is created by calling better-auth, and configure the database. And that's now probably the part where I wanna follow this Drizzle ORM adapter guidance here. So I actually want to use this code in my auth.ts file, I guess. And import db from database ts, that's wrong. In my case here, it's db. And I need to export my db here in order to be able to use it, assuming that we're talking about this. I'll see if it works or not. So we are using SQLite. And then, okay, so now I got 2 guides I need to follow. So I'll keep that page open and then also go to the installation page again. I did now work on the auth.js file. I did configure this part here now with help of that adapter. Oh, okay, they also mentioned that. Oh, am I on that page? Is that just a fail? No, this is a separate page, okay. So I am using that Drizzle adapter. Not with Postgres, but with SQLite. And now we need to create database tables. Okay, and that's now the part where we should run this command here to let better-auth generate the schema. Yeah, that's the same command. So let's see what happens if I try to run that. Let's see if that works or if it fails. No configuration file found. Add a auth.js file. Okay, so I guess auth.js needs to go to the project root. Or I guess we can try config app auth.js to point it towards that file. Okay, couldn't read your config. Make sure to default export your auth instance. Or to export as a variable named auth. Okay, it is exported as a variable named auth. So is it because that should be a relative path? No. Let's move it to the top of this project. And without that flag. Okay, that also doesn't work. I do recall from my better-auth stream that the setup process was not a lot of fun for the same reasons or for similar reasons why it's not a lot of fun today. File not saved, oh gosh. Good catch, good catch. Oh man, that's such a stupid mistake. Okay, so let's try again. So I'm so glad you caught that. I probably would have tried for 2 more minutes until I saw that. So now that everything is saved, that looks better. Good. So now we got a schema that was generated here in auth schema.ts. And that's now using Drizzle, and that was generated for us, obviously, for defining the database tables better-auth needs for storing users and all that stuff. So that's that. Now I need to migrate, right? With DrizzleKit though. So I don't use better-auth migrate, but DrizzleKit. So I'll execute npx DrizzleKit migrate. No config path provided. Oh yeah, because in Drizzle config, I'm pointing at source db schema, but actually it's here in auth-schema. So the correct path is auth schema like this, I guess. Now with that saved, why is that not working? No config path provided. Reading config file. It's reading that config file. Drizzle config. Can't find. But why is there no config path provided? Are there any further instructions? I mean, I got my schema here. Auth schema ts. That looks good to me. Why do you not like that? No it's using that file. Reading it. Can't find meta journal JSON file. It could, of course, be that environment variables are missing. That could be the problem here. I'm actually not sure if this npx command also uses, allows me to use --env file, but I guess we'll find out. If not, I'll use the, yeah, so I'll try using .env then, just to make sure that this is not the problem. So I did already install it anyways, so we can just add that import here. And let's see if that was the reason for this failing without that. But it still looks like it's not going to work, right? That is really weird. What's your problem here? What do the Drizzle docs say? They tell me to generate migrations and then run migrate. And they have a schema file that looks similar to ours, or a config file, I should say. And they point at schema TS in a different path, but I don't have that path here. I have this schema file instead, and I'm pointing at that file here. So what is your problem? I mean, I guess we can ask AI and see what Copilot has to say for that. DrizzleKit init. I don't think I want to initialize a new configuration here. I don't think that's too helpful, to be honest. So what has Google to say to that? A problem related to indexes. Huh. Well, what does worked for me by adding export? Delete your migrations folder. I have no migrations folder, I think. So, better-auth Drizzle. Drizzle adapter. Schema. Where are the migration files? Do I need to run this better-auth command, though I did do that, right? Or do I need to run this drizzle generate command here too? And now, okay. So that's really weird that the official better-auth docs kind of imply that you run better-auth generate. And when using Drizzle, you run generate and then DrizzleKit migrate, when in reality, it looks like you actually also have to run DrizzleKit generate in between. So again, Uncivil saving the day. Thank you so much. Use Prisma. Well, I think we got it for now. So looks like now finally we have a database. We have those tables, better-auth ones, and therefore finally we can continue and define the various providers we want to have in that auth.ts file. So let's go there. And in there, for now, I want to enable email and password authentication, and then later I can add social providers. To handle API requests, you need to set up a route handler. So now this route should handle requests for the path API auth. Okay, so that's now probably the part where I should look at the TanStack specific documentation here, because I think that's the part that's different, or that needs to be TanStack Start specific. Because I need to create an API folder in the routes folder now, and then an auth folder in that API folder, and in there, this $TS file, and have that content in there. So I'll do that. API, auth, and then $TS, and have that code in that file. And then here, that is actually the auth file here. Okay. So we got that set up. Now with that, create client instance. I'll do that later, I guess, if I do it at all, because I'll probably communicate with my backend authentication part on the backend. Good. So let's try creating a user then, shall we? Now we got that all set up. Let's first of all see if the development server still runs. Yeah, that's looking good. And now on that off screen here, I want to handle form submissions. And for that, we can create a server function. Create user could be the name. And how did that work? To create server function. Did I pass a function to that? Like this? Or how? Okay, let's have a look at the official docs. It's been a week and I forgot everything. Server functions. How do they look? Create server function. Oh, okay, we have handler and then the function. Got it. Okay. So I want to handle post requests here, I guess. Then I got my handler. And in there, I want to create a user. Talk to better-auth and create a user. Now, for better-auth, I do recall that you could create that client-side code to interact with it from the client side, but you could also interact with better-auth from the server side. Yeah, by using Auth API. So in there, I can use auth, import that from that auth file in which that better-auth thing is set up. And in there, access API. And then there, we also have something. Sign up user. We have some method we can call to create a new user. Delete user. Sign in. Sign up email. That's the one I want. And then we pass a body to sign up email. And that body wants an email and a password. And I guess a name, a username, and I'll just use the email for that. So that's how and we get back a promise. And as a result, in the promise, we get an object which has an authentication token, which we can use and so on. So like this. So I want to trigger this function when that form here is submitted. So what's the most elegant way of doing that in TanStack Start? Do they have preferences for that? I mean, there are countless ways of doing that, of course, with server functions. And I just wonder if they do have a favorite way, or a preferred way, I should say, of doing it. So server functions can accept form data objects. Okay. So we can actually trigger it like this, for example, construct our own form data from the form data. So that looks quite good. So I guess that's what I'll do. Since I'm lazy, I can just copy this code here, put it onto my form, and yeah, prevent the default so that we can gather the data here on the front end. And then I guess call create user. Create user and extract the data there. Now, what's the problem here? Form data is not assignable to type undefined. Is that because I'm not extracting it? No. Create server function, method post. It's probably because they have validation here. Is that the case? I do recall that you could easily add validator, that they have like this funnel approach here. And is that generic, or how do I tell? How do I tell TanStack which shape my data will have? I mean, if I add this here, I have to add all kinds of generic parameters, which I don't really want to do. So what's their approach towards that? To make TypeScript happy. Because it's not happy right now. Now, of course, I can type it here, right? I can say, I'll get an email, which is a string, and a password. And maybe that is the way to do it. But I'll still get complaints down there. Type form data as the following properties, email. Oh, so I'll say, right, that this is form data. Okay. Yeah, now everyone's happy. Okay, so now I'm handling that here, collecting that, calling create user, have some validation here, checking if it's maybe not form data, though I'm telling it is here with TypeScript. Then I want to get my email and my password. And check if I maybe don't have an email, or I don't have a password, or if my email does not okay, and I wanna, so yeah, well, first check that, and then I'll check if not email to string includes an @ symbol. And in that case, I also want to throw a new error. Please provide a valid email. And of course, here I should change my error message and say email and password are required. So there is that. And actually, I can already call toString here, so that I don't have to do it here. And then I'll return. I'll actually not return that. Well, I will return. I will return email and password, right? So that in the handler, I get email and password. And I assume, or no, I know we only get there if we have a valid email and password according to these checks. If not, we throw an error. And I assume that if we throw an error, we go back here to the client side and we can handle it, right? So do we try catch it, or how does that work? What do they have to say about validation here? Here is a simple example. Yeah, sure. Server functions can be configured to validate. It will accept whatever the value you return from this function will become the input passed to the actual server function handler. Yeah, but how do I handle that on the client side? I guess we try catch. We'll see if that is the thing to do. And then do something here. I mean, since it's a React component, we could use state and have an error message here. Gosh, I can't type today. So is that the way to do it? That we have our error here, and I set error to error if I have one. Message. Okay, it's unknown, of course, so in TypeScript world, I have to check if error instance of error. And if that's the case, I'll set error to error message. Otherwise, I still know that there is some error. It's just not an error of type error. So in that case, I'll say an unknown error occurred. And whenever we submit, I want to clear that error. And then, of course, in that form, let's say here above the button, I'll check if error. In that case, I want to output the error message and yeah, give it a red color. Sure. So that should do the trick, hopefully. And I'm not doing anything with the result, but let's see if that works up to this point. TanStack is so obsessive with type safety that sometimes it's just a pain to use. Yeah, I mean, that's in general the problem with TypeScript. I like TypeScript a lot, but if you, for example, like here, when I'm just getting started with a library I don't know a lot about or barely anything, and you don't know exactly how do you tell it that something is of a certain type in a certain place, I do agree that TypeScript can really get in your way there. You do lose quite a lot of speed there. So I'll open my console here to see potential errors and give it a try. So let's try signing up with something valid. And for now, nothing will happen. And it says log in here. Actually, I'm creating a user, but I'll change that later. Okay, invalid email. That makes no sense. This looks pretty valid to me. We got a server-side error here because of that email address, I assume. I'm not happy that we got a 500 error, to be honest. Shouldn't be 500. So I can see that the data was submitted. So looks like something's wrong on the server side. Maybe it is a 500 error because no, I got back bad request, invalid email. So I'm not a fan of that. I mean, if it's a bad request, I shouldn't get an error object that contains the text or some status bad request. I should get back an error that has the bad request status. I mean, I should get back a response with that status. But maybe we can change that. I don't want to have like a status code encoded here in some payload that's sent with the response. Anyways, so looks like something's wrong with my validation code. Let's see. But I'm never saying invalid email. What's going on here? Oh! Okay, I see. I am, of course, calling sign up email. I'm just always passing an empty string to that. So that was an error that came straight from better-auth. Okay, so I should handle that in a better way. But first I want to check if my validation works. So if I enter something that's not an email address, and I think I'll have to tweak my DevTools here a little bit to allow myself to do that. And I send some password. yeah, now I get my own error message. Now, if I do change that to a valid email address, but I send, actually I have no check to make sure that the password is long enough, so I'll add one. If password length is smaller than 6, sure, that sounds good. So now with that, if I send a valid email, but a password that's not long enough, I get this error, sure. Okay, so that's looking good. So now next, I should make sure that I handle this in a better way. So for that, I want to try, I mean, in theory here, since I validate the user input on the server side, and if I then use that input here, I should actually never have a scenario where it fails due to that reason, but it could of course fail for other reasons because the database is inaccessible or something like that. So I want to send back or I want to throw an error here as well. And I don't recall how that worked in TanStack. I think I throw a response. Oh. Where is it? Handling errors. If a server function throws an error, it will be serialized and sent to the client as a JSON response along with a 500 status code. Okay. How can I set status codes myself? Responding with a status code. Yeah, that's a standard response, right? No. So I can just return a response. Is that also the case here for server functions? I mean, how would I redirect? I throw a redirect. So I guess I can throw a response, right? But here I really just want to throw a new error. Authentication failed. And of course, I might want to provide a more meaningful error message, but good enough for now. Okay, and I'll also change that label and say create user, because at the moment, that's all we can do. Good. So we get back a result here if everything works. And that is that authentication token or the user. Now, I think I want to send that token with a cookie back to the client, so to say, so that the browser can store that and use it for future authentication. Is that all you have about cookies? Yeah, but how do I set a cookie? That would be really interesting. I mean, I can always send back a response and set it manually. The question just is if there is some utility maybe for doing that, but maybe there isn't. Okay, so I guess I set the cookie myself. I'm just checking if they have any guides on that. I have to say it's been a while since I last... Or does TanStack do that for me? Not TanStack, better-auth, because normally better-auth manages cookies. And for example, for Next.js, I do remember that there, in order to make it work, you essentially had to provide some extra code so that they could access the headers and also set cookies. But they're not telling me to do something like this for TanStack Start, so the assumption is that they will do it for me. I just wonder if I go here to application cookies. I of course have no cookie right now, because how would I? Because in the end, I'm handling the result here, so I'm sending back a response. So it is, of course, my duty to set that cookie, right? So I guess here I would return a new response. I'm not allowed to do that as it seems. Or am I getting this because I'm not done configuring the response? Okay, so how do I do that in TanStack Start? How do I can throw a redirect, great. But how can I send back a normal response? Or can I just send back data? Returning raw response objects. Responding with custom status code, custom headers. That's what I want to do. So, right, they do have these functions from TanStack Start, React Start, Server, set header, and so on. Yep. Okay. So I import stuff from @TanStack React Start Server. And then what do they have here? Set header, set cookie. The problem just is I need to know which cookie better-auth is looking for, or I guess, well, if I do all the interactions, I can extract it myself and send it to better-auth. So does better-auth tell me something about that, how I should set that cookie? Maybe I'm also just having a little hiccup in my head and it's not as complex as I think it is. The last time I used better-auth, it was just in the Next.js project where they handled it. Okay, by default, better-auth uses the following cookies: session token, session data to store the session data if cookie cache is enabled. Don't remember. Okay. So I guess I want to set a cookie named session token. So what I would do is I would call set cookie, give it a name of session token, and a value of result token, I guess. What's the problem here? That this is potentially null. Okay, so if not result token, then something went wrong. And I'll also throw an error here and say authentication failed. Otherwise, I set that cookie. And then I return any data I want to return, or actually I want to redirect, of course. So in that case, I saw that before. How can I redirect? I can redirect by throwing the result of calling redirect. So let's give this a try. Let's throw redirect here. And let's redirect to the starting page. What's the syntax for that? Redirect, okay, it wants an object with 2. That's the problem with all these AI tools sometimes. All the auto-completion might work for the stuff it was trained on, but not necessarily what you're working on. Okay, but now this seems to work. Dev server is up and running. Let's give this a try. So if I again try to create a new user here with a sufficiently long password, authentication failed. Why did it fail? Server function error, authentication failed, yeah, but authentication failed. So something went wrong from better-auth's side, I guess. So let's do good old console log debugging, not here, here. And let's try again. The model user was not found in the schema object. Please pass the schema directly to the adapter options. Okay, so something went wrong with initializing that database, as it seems. In theory, we have create table user. Now, I wonder if it's something here in the auth.js file that I would need to change. Where is it? Here. Provider SQLite. Okay, yeah, I need to do that. Forgot that step. So here in the Drizzle adapter, I should add schema. And schema is imported. The Drizzle adapter expects the schema you define to match the table names. For example, if your Drizzle schema maps the user table to users. Well, I did not manually set up that. I do have, of course, this auth schema, but in there, that was generated by better-auth and was then used to generate my migrations, and that was used to initialize the database. So actually, I'm using the default schema expected by better-auth. So I'm not sure if I really need to define this. What was the message? The model user was not found in the schema object. Shouldn't you be using the default schema expected by better-auth? I mean, there, when going through the setup, do they also link to a schema? Nope. So in the official better-auth documentation, they in the end. I mean, that's their guide on how the Drizzle Auth.js file should look like, right? Drizzle adapter, provider, in my case SQLite, but they don't have that schema here, and I guess it makes no sense for me either. Where you did you add the schemas in the Drizzle config where you export const db? Here you mean? Oh, so again, back to the Drizzle world, you mean, that is of course possible. So in there, I guess that's the code for seeding the database, which is not really what I want to do. Yesterday I was having the same problem. I gave up. I will continue using Glurk. That does not make me too hopeful, because indeed this is rather weird. This is really weird. I mean, in the database migration, or let's take a look at the app.db file. Let's quickly install an extension that allows us to look into it. What's wrong? Is it that SQLite viewer? Here we go. The table, excuse me, the tables were created, so the tables exist. So it's really just a link. The problem is that, is that the Drizzle problem, or is it a better-auth problem, or is it a problem with better-auth communicating with Drizzle, and that not working. You can pass an object in the Drizzle function as a second parameter. Here, okay. And in there you can pass schema. And schema wants. But what should I pass here? A path to that file or what? What do the Drizzle docs say? I mean, stuff like that is always annoying if you follow the getting started guides. At least I think I did, and then stuff just does not work. And having schema type any is also not too useful. I don't know what it wants. Schema. Let's see. Okay, that's a different file. That is a different file. Integer. That's all something else. Yep. Got a bunch of schemas here, but that is all something else. Database connection. Let's take a look at that. You should have a file that exports all your schemas. Yeah. Okay, so do I pass something like, do I pass an object here where I say user, and then I map that to user, which is imported from the auth schema? And I do that for everything in that file. So I can import everything as schemas or auth schema. And then in the end, just spread that in here. Is that what I should do? Let's see. Let's try again. Server unavailable. We got a different error, so I guess that's good. Unfortunately, that is not a helpful error message. Yeah, so thank you so much for the help, Mimimi and Nicholas. That was really, really useful. I think we solved that problem. We can now focus on the next one. Unfortunately, that's not too useful of an error message. And here I just got some HTML that was sent back, but essentially here it's saying 503. But I got more details here. Server function info not found for app routes, auth, tsx, create user. What is server function info? Is there anything else in there that helps? Check console logs for more detail. Well, there isn't more detail in those logs here. I can tell that the cookie was not sent, or set, I mean. So let's go back to auth tsx and let's do more console log debugging. Let's console log result here. Oh, and also I want to check whether the user was created. So I'll look at my database and nope, there is no user here. So looks like that failed, but then we should really print an error here, right? Well, let's see what we get. Let's restart the dev server for good measure. Reload this page. Okay, got a different error. Server function error. So I do get back an object with a token and some user data. Okay, and the user was created. So maybe there was like a mismatch. Maybe the dev server didn't reload the page before correctly. Okay, so that works. That's good. And then I try to redirect. I'm not sure why that is getting locked. Maybe because I throw it. Should I not throw it? Should I return it? No, I'm not allowed to return it. Server function error. Authentication failed. So creating a user worked. Redirects. To throw a redirect. Yeah, but do I want to throw it? I'm not sure if I want to throw it. Or is it just about calling redirect? Do I not even have to throw it? On the client, redirects are handled by the router automatically. If you call a server function from anywhere else, redirects will not be handled automatically. To throw a redirect. Server functions can throw. No, I have to throw it. Yeah, it did connect Drizzle to better-auth, and I think that part is working. So now we just have to figure out why redirecting is not working. Is it maybe because I'm setting a cookie? I'm not sure if that has anything to do with that, since I'm messing with the response here. Maybe that's the problem. Let's restart the dev server, since that seemed to help before. Let's reload. Let's create a new user, since creating the user worked, so that email address is taken. So let's create, oh gosh. Let's create a new user. And it still fails. Still fails. Authentication failed. Oh, I know. Because of try catch, right? Because I'm throwing inside of try catch. So when I throw outside of try catch, I was catching my own redirect. Yeah. Okay, progress. So I want to try that. Oh, that's not okay. So I want to try that. I only want to redirect if that worked. So theoretically, I want to do that in the try catch block. So I could now either in the catch block check whether what I threw is a redirect and then rethrow it. I don't want to do that necessarily. Or I change my logic here, move that out of there, and check if, and add a variable named result. And set the type of that equal to type of auth API sign up email. And I think now it's that, and I wanted to have the return type. And then I want to have that await. I think it's awaited. So now that's the proper type to which I can set this. And then I have my checks here. And if I make it past this checks, I know that it worked. And then I can set my cookie and redirect, right? So that should work, I think. So let's restart again. And use a different email address. I feel like I'm wipe coding again. An unknown error. Server function response 200. Payload 2. The cookie is set though. That's nice. So now the only problem is that redirecting did not work. It looks like everything worked on paper. Got a 200 response here. It's just this damn redirect. Now, it could be because I try catch here where I call that function. Maybe I'm not supposed to do that. I just wonder how I'm supposed to handle errors then on the client side. I mean, why do I have to throw it? Why not return it? Everything would be better if I could just return it. So it would be interesting to understand what the plan is for error handling on the client side. Maybe I'm doing that wrong. I assume I'm doing it wrong. So let's. I want to check if my assumption is right, that this is the problem. So I'll comment this out for the moment. Yeah, I'll try redirecting without throwing in a second. Could be the case that this works. For now, I'll just quickly try like this. Nope. Now I got an uncaught error. So let's call redirect like that. Let's try like this, and let's see what that gives us. Let's continue creating users. Now I don't get an error, obviously, because I'm not throwing anything, but I also don't get the redirect I want. I can, of course, also call redirect on the client side, but here they're calling it on the server side, and it should work, I guess. So I wonder what the problem is. So here we got a bunch of people facing the same issue, but might be a different problem. The redirect function returns a new redirect object that can be either returned or thrown from places like a route's before load or loader callbacks. And server functions, we saw that in the docs. If the throw property is true in the options object, the redirect object will be thrown. What? Yeah, throw. Okay, that's not helpful. So, I mean, this is a server function. They are throwing. I'm doing the same thing. For me, it's not working as it seems. On the client, redirects are handled by the router automatically from within a route lifecycle or a component that uses the use server function hook. If you call a server function from anywhere else, redirects will not be handled automatically. So that's probably the problem, that I'm not inside of a route lifecycle. I'm not inside of load or anything like that. And that I'm not using the use server function hook. I'm not sure how I should use that hook, so let's find out. Use server function. When using server functions, be aware that redirects, blah, blah. Yeah, what does this use server function hook do? Do I have to call that hook to expose that server function? Is that maybe my problem? Use server function. And then what? Do I pass the server function to that? Like create user. Do I pass that to it and get back a function which I can call on the client side? Maybe that's the entire problem. So is that now working if I call? Maybe that's... It would have been good if the docs had shown that somewhere, but maybe it wasn't a quick start and I just forgot. I will not rule that out. though I can't find it here on a quick search, but sure. So I'll name the function, I'll name my server function, or no, on the client side here, I'll name it sign up. So now I'm funneling the create user server function through that hook, expose it as a different function on the client side, and now I'm hopeful that this will work. I wanted to make a bit more progress than that today, but we'll see. Maybe now we can. I was really hopeful that this was going to work. I won't give up. Let's restart the development server. Oh, and maybe I'm not throwing it anymore because I changed that before. Yeah, so let's throw again. Let's not give up. Let's not give up hope too early. So now I'm throwing it again. I restarted the dev server, and now it has to work. Here we go. Here we go. Redirect works. Amazing. Awesome. So that's fun. Now, after almost 1.5 hours, we got that working. I will say, without you, it would have taken me longer because there was some stuff that simply was not mentioned in the doc. So thank you so much. And with that, we got sign up working. Let's now work on sign in. That should be a bit faster now. For sign in, I'll copy this create user function and I'll name it, whoops. Yeah, I'll name it, where is it? I'll name it login user. Post request, let's validate the incoming data. I want to check if we have an email and password. I don't care if the password and an email are valid because we'll validate them against the database anyways, or better-auth will do that to be precise. So that's that. And I also, in the handler, I'll call, what's it called? Sign in email, forward email and password, I guess. Yeah, don't need the name here. Got the same handling as before, setting the token, setting the cookie. So that should be all. On the client side, I now need a way to switch between login and sign up mode. So I'll use state for that. And quickly add a new state here. So is login or is sign up, because I want to have login as a default. So is sign up is false as a default. So login is the default therefore. Then I'll add a function, handle toggle auth, and in there I wanna set, right, in there I'll set it like this, exactly, clear the error, makes sense, and add a new button here below the other button, and in there I'll check if is sign up. In that case, the button should say, so we are in sign up mode and we wanna switch to login, so the button should say, I have an account, log in instead. Otherwise, if we are in login mode, the button should say create a new account. Like this. And we could also use a link and query params, but I don't want to lose more time on trying to extract those. Maybe in the future. For now, I'll use a button here. Make it type button so that it won't submit the form. And on click, it should call handle toggle auth. So now, of course, I also want to change the styling a little bit. I'll use flex column, add a little bit of gap, and save that. So then now I have this button. Let's also give this button some styling, text. Yeah, why not? Yep. Okay, so now I can switch. We got no other visual indication. This button's label should also switch. So here I want to check if is sign up. In that case, I want to say create user. Otherwise, I want to say login. Yeah, makes sense. And in my on submit code here, I want to change which function gets called. And I need to expose that function. So here I'll have a login function, use server function, login user, and I want to call that instead of sign up if we are in sign up mode. So here in try, I can check if is sign up and either call sign up or login, submit the form data. That should work, I guess. So now I'll clear that cookie manually here in my DevTools. And I'll try logging in with that first user I created. I hope that I did not mistype the password back then. Yeah, that works. And the cookie is set again too. Great. So that's working. We can sign up, we can log in. It's getting stored in the database. Just to double check in the database under session, I got a bunch of sessions going on for all the users that were created. Now let's take a look. That latest session has this ID AF5. It's over here. Yeah, it's there. So that works. That's all working. Now it would be nice to have some indicator on the client side, whether we're logged in or not, and it would be nice if we were able to log out. For that, I think I will actually set up this client-side better-auth code, right? So under installation, create client instance. That's what I want to do here for React. Auth client TS, I'll add such a file. I'll do it not in my routes, of course. I'll do it here, auth client TS. And in there have this code. That should allow me to go to my root page here, actually, because there I want to include a nav bar. So I'm going to have like a header here. And in that header, we can have all kinds of nav items. But one thing I want to have in there is a logout button, right? But that button should, of course, only show up if we are logged in, which at the moment we are because we have a cookie. So therefore, here in root document, I'd like to use this auth client. So add this import the auth client we just created, and check whether we are authenticated or not. I guess I do that with get session, but I'll check with the official docs. Okay, email, sign up, sign in, server-side authentication, we saw that. Social sign in with providers, sign out. Session, client-side use session. Oh, I can use the use session hook on the client side. Okay. So, whoops. So I can call use session here, this hook. And I get back an object with data. And that's my session data. And I guess if that is not, it could be null if we are not authenticated, I guess. If it's not null, we are authenticated. So is authenticated is equal to this check, right? Checking if that is, converting this to true or false. And I could also just, yeah, I'll do it like this. So I then want to render this logout button if we are authenticated. So in theory, that button should show up now. What's the value of is authenticated? Is authenticated false because it fails to send this request. So this client-side better-auth code wants to send a request to the backend to check whether I have a session, and I get a 404 error. And that's weird because I have set up this. Is that in the wrong folder? No, in the API auth, routes API auth, and then $TS. I mean, that is the setup they mention in their docs, don't they? app routes /API /auth $TS. App routes API auth $TS. So those routes should be exposed, I guess. I did set up the server-side part of better-auth as far as I know. I did set up this part here, right? It's here. And I do have this auth.ts file here. It's also there. And if that weren't here, the other stuff with signing up and so on also wouldn't have worked. So better-auth seems to be set up correctly. Or I guess it's not, otherwise this would work. But it's these routes that are the problem right now. And I mean, it's not like an error, a 500 error that something went wrong. Instead, it's a 404 error that this route doesn't exist. But this route /API /auth /getSession should exist because I added this file here, this catch-all file in API auth. It's of course possible that something about TanStack Start changed since the better-auth docs were written, and API routes are exposed differently now because TanStack Start is still in beta after all. And now the page is not loading. My internet is working though. Here we go. Whoa, flashbang. Sure, I'll guess we'll go with light mode then for now. So defining an API route, create API file route. That's what we're calling here, so that still is correct. /API /something. So maybe the catch-all part changed. Nope. Still $TS and then $sign here. I mean, what could be the case, of course, is that maybe in the past this segment was extracted differently, but yeah, that could, of course, theoretically be the case. That better-auth internally is not looking for that. So maybe there is a wrong cookie name, but that can't be the problem, because even if it were, it should be some other error. It's a 404 error that this route doesn't exist. That's the problem. And normally, better-auth, this code here, should ensure that all requests that start with localhost 3000 /API /auth /something, that all those requests reach this API route because it's a catch-all route. And then in there, all GET requests will be handled by this function, all POST requests will be handled by this function, and then better-auth takes over. The problem just is that we never reach this, right? So it's a GET request that's failing, and I guess this, therefore, will never show up. I'll also take a look at these warnings in a second. Maybe they help us here. So we got this 404 error, not found. And therefore, of course, I don't see the output of this console log on the server. Warning, a not found error was encountered on the route with ID root, but a not found component option was not. Okay, so that's just a warning that I don't have a not found page. But that's not my problem here. My problem here is that I don't want a not found error in the first place. So what's the problem here? Why is this not working? API routes in the routes folder. Oh, yeah, no, app routes API. That is correct. I mean, they're not mentioning the app folder here, but the routes folder is in the app folder, and that should be in the routes folder. So I guess my code is in the right place. Yeah, the better-auth client. So the better-auth client is responsible for handling the request. The thing is, this code here, these two handlers should get triggered for anything that starts with /API /auth, no matter what comes thereafter. So the request that's failing is for get session. after /API/auth. But whatever is here actually doesn't matter, because this part here, these two segments, should actually trigger this file here, or this handler, because we're catching all routes. That's what that here means. We're catching all requests that start with these segments. And then get requests should be handled by this function, post requests by this function. And here it's a get request. But somehow this code doesn't execute. So it's not even better-auth's problem. Instead, this here doesn't execute, right? If I log that here, we will not see hello in the console if I reload. We don't see it here. We don't see it here. We see a bunch of warnings. We can ignore those. So that's the problem here. So it's actually this catch-all route here that's not getting activated. At least that's how it seems to me. Now, the problem is that I can't find the mistake here according to the official docs, because we're talking about a wildcard route here, and that should be named $TS, which mine is, and it should be in the API folder, in the routes folder. And then in this case, this example here uses file. I'm using auth, but that doesn't matter. It's just a route segment. Yeah, the file path is correct, right? So otherwise it wouldn't fold like this. But just to make it super clear, if I open this in Finder, it's in the routes folder, API folder, auth folder, $TS. So that should be correct. The $TS file should be in the correct folder. Create API file route is also what I'm calling here. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe it should not be /API/auth, because here in this example, it's just /file/$, even though it's an API/file. So maybe that was the problem. So let's see. Nope. Still getting the same error. Oh, and this was changed again. So that gets changed automatically. Right? If I delete that and save that, it comes back. But I wonder why that is, because in their docs, that's different. There, the file is also in the API folder in the end, but it's not included here. So that's really weird, because in all these examples in the docs, the /API part is not part of this thing here. Is that maybe some config problem? Do I need to enable API routes? You can customize this base path with API base URL in your TanStack Start config. Yeah, but I don't have that, so the default should be applied. API routes follow the same file-based routing. Each file in your routes folder that is prefixed with API will be treated as an API route. Yeah. So defining an API route. The export variable must be named API route. Yeah, that's the case here. I wonder why it always re-adds API if I save that. I am in the API folder after all, so. Is that something I need to enable? API base URL. I mean, that should be the default, as I understand it. And it keeps re-adding that. But I'm desperate enough to try it, so let's see. Nope. It's really weird. I'm pretty certain that it's something, it's not detecting this as an API route somehow. I'm pretty sure that this is the problem. I just don't understand why that's the case. That's the tricky part here. Thank you so much, Emperor 3000, for the €5. Yeah, it's really weird. I know that feeling. If you hear someone at normal speed, if you're used to like always ramping up that speed, because I watch all my videos on 1.5 or even double speed too. So yeah, thank you so much. Super happy you're liking the content. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Should get post handler be async? We can try. I think it should work either way, but we can try. Nope, that's not the problem. And auth handler returns a promise anyway, so yeah, they already do that. Pretty sure it's somehow related to this weird thing with the API routes folder. I just can't figure out where my setup differs from the one described here in the official docs. Yeah, remove the API and save without formatting. The problem is it's not formatting. And I have formatting on save not even turned on. It's the dev server watching my files. And if I say, for the same reason why it adds boilerplate, if I create a new route, right? If I add a new route, this code in there just shows up because the dev server is watching it. And the same is here for saving. If I save this, I'm not formatting. I have format on save disabled, right? If I format document, format on save is disabled. So I'm not doing that. It happens when I save that file. So it's not formatting related. It's save related, and I have to save it. It re-adds that automatically for me, which tells me it detects this as a regular route, not as an API route. Now, what if I add that in the app folder? I guess that's the wrong place for it to be. I think it should be in the routes folder, not in the app folder, but well, it's already not working, so why not try like this? But yeah, that was not the solution. That is the right place to put it, I guess. That is annoying. That is really annoying. Because you can't do more than try to read the docs and set it up in the same way, right? So, I mean, what if I add another route? Like, if I add in the API folder a test TS file. Yeah. It does detect that it's an API route, though. It calls create API file route. And that code also was added for me. So it does detect that it's an API route, but it kind of seems to have the wrong path here. Like, I feel that if I were to grab this URL to which it tries to send a request, and if I add an extra API here, okay, that also doesn't work. Without API, yeah, I don't even know for which path it would load that. Yeah, with the simple route, sure, I can do that. Keep the test route here with the default output. So the idea would be that I can trigger that by visiting API test. And I also get not found for that. So all these API routes fail. If I just visit /test, that's also not it. If I add API for whatever reason, that's also not correct. So in general, API routes don't work here, as it seems. That's really weird, because I don't have any special setup here as far as I know. So that's the automatically generated route tree. Is something interesting in here? Is something related? There is nothing related to API in here. That's maybe not good. I guess that could be the problem, that it's somehow not picking up those API routes in this route tree file. What if I delete that file and I then, I hope it regenerates it now if I restart the server. Yeah, it does. But still nothing about API in there. Really weird. Do you have an app API TS file? I don't. Do I need one? Does it say so in the doc somewhere? Oh, man. Yeah. Oh, man. Thank you so much, Vikash. I feel like that should go to the top of that. Okay. That will probably help here. Let's see. I'm still on that test route. Okay, now I got a 500 error, which is way better, because that means it found the route now. Now it's just something's wrong with the code in there. So let's just verify that this gets executed now. If I reload, okay, I'm not getting an error now anymore. So maybe it again was just due to the dev server not reloading correctly. Okay, so now that gets triggered. Good. Now the only strange part is that I'm still not treated as authenticated, even though I have my cookie. And I would expect that that cookie is sent to the backend, right? So that request contains that cookie. Now it is of course possible that that cookie has the wrong name though, because I set it myself and I did not let better-auth set that cookie for me. Now I did try to use the name for the cookie better-auth told me they were using. But the server provides a session object that you can use to access the session data. So yeah, but what if I want to set, maybe I just need to set that cookie differently. That is absolutely possible. I don't want to get the session though. I want to sign up on the server side though, not with the client side package. I could do that too, and I will do it if I returns a response object instead of data. That sounds promising. So let's go to auth TSX again. And there, instead of, well, I'm not sure if I want to send a response. If the server cannot return a response object, which is the case here, you'll need to manually parse and set cookies. Yeah, it would just be interesting to learn which shape those cookies should have. But what I can do I can pass, yeah, as response true to sign in with email. And now this returns a different kind of object. Though I'm actually deriving my result type here. Oh, I'm just getting back a plain response now, right? So, like this. Okay, so now I guess now I can get my cookie header that they wanna set and set it myself. So instead of calling set cookie, I can call set headers imported from that react start server thing here. And and set cookie. What's their problem? Oh, they probably want an object here, right? Like this. So maybe if I try setting a cookie like this, that will do the trick. So that's for creating a user. I'll try doing the same. No, that is login. So let's try that. Clear that cookie which I set. Let's go to auth. And log in. Okay, now we get a cookie that has a different name. Okay, so that probably was the issue. So I want to do the same, of course, when I create a user. So let's do that real quick. Let's comment out this code, even though I probably won't need it again. This will be of type response, because here I'll set as response to true. I should probably still check whether we have a cookie though, but to make some progress, I'll do it like this. We'll be fine. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so now I should be setting the cookie correctly, and now, whoops. Now hopefully, yeah, now the logout button is here. Here it is. Whew. So, progress. Got the logout button. Let's make it work. So, I guess that is something we can now do entirely on the client side here. I can add a function handle logout, or actually I don't even need that, right? I can add on click and then use the auth client, and then there is a logout function, I guess, or a sign out as we can also call it. Okay, let's do it like this, and everybody's happy. So now if I reload and I click this button, it disappears because we're signed out. I guess I would want to redirect. I mean, if I'm on a starting page, it's fine, but on other pages, I would want to redirect. So the question just is, how do I redirect on the client side? That's the question. Yeah, we can throw redirects on the server side. Can we also redirect on the client side, though? So I'm in the server functions documentation. That's probably not the place. I mean, I can add a server function. The alternative, of course, would be, right, to add like a logout function here with create server fn, add my handler like this. Yeah, it's not a function, it's const. And then in there, I can, of course, use auth, not the auth client, but the server-side auth part, API sign out. That should do the same thing. Sign out wants an argument. Which argument do you want? Input context. What should that be? The request? It's probably not that. Yeah, I don't know. But it would be more convenient to simply redirect on the client side anyways. I mean, since we're using TanStack router, I forgot, the place is probably the TanStack router docs, right? They probably have something about redirecting. Well, I have to say, if you want to find something quickly, somehow I fail to do that with those docs. Even though I would not say that they're bad, but again, here I'm in some route setup code, but how can I redirect if I'm inside of a component? That is what I'd be interested in, navigation. Link, yeah, I need programmatic. Absolute dynamic, relative, search, hash links. Wow, so bright. Preloading, use navigate. I mean, that's something I can do, right? I can probably use the use navigate hook here from TanStack router, and that will give me something, some nav function. So I can use that, right? So I will add a function, handle logout, and move that code into that function and call it down there, handle logout. And does that give me a promise? It does. So let's do async await, and then call nav, go to the starting page. Okay, nav also does not work as expected, of course. We pass a function to it, to the starting page, please. And can I set replace to true to have a redirect? Now, of course, I am on the starting page already, but we can change that. If I go back to /auth here and I do log in again, I'm redirected to the starting page because that is what we do. But if I now go back to the auth page again, I also have the logout button here, of course, because it's in the header, that's in the root document. And if I now click this, we should be redirected. Yeah, we are. Okay, so that's how we can redirect there. Okay, that's it. So yeah, I'm out of time. I gotta go. I have to say, I'm really sorry. My plan was to get way more done than this, but I guess on the bright side, we got working auth now. We got, I figured it out roughly how things work together now. Maybe that also is helpful to some of you, and I'll try to continue working on this, probably also in the next stream, maybe off stream. I hope I'll remember a bit more so that I'll be back into TanStack router, TanStack Start a bit faster then, but yeah, the plan still is to build that voting app. not bad for 2 hours. Yeah, I gotta sign up for him and a redirect, right? Something that well, I've built something like that a bit faster than 2 hours in the past, but yeah, we got the basics out of the way. We'll jump back into it in the next week and hopefully make more progress then. I will say it's a bunch of new stuff here, which I have not used a lot. TanStack Start, TanStack Router, have not used that at all. Better-auth, have barely touched it. Drizzle, have barely touched it. So lots of new stuff. Some confusing docs, I have to say. But yeah, here we are. We'll continue in the future. I hope you liked it. Thank you all for being part of the stream. I'll head back, grab something to eat, and hopefully see you in future streams too. Thank you all so much for being part. Bye.